Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another Ebony Explains. Today I'm doing another Notion tutorial, and today we are talking all about subtasks and dependencies and how you can leverage these fairly new Notion features so that you can boost your productivity, and it will also help you to stay on track when it comes to managing tasks as well as your client projects. So if you're excited about that, this is a video for you.
There's no stopping me now. I know my shot sit down. Money's all over me. I'm called to be rich and be free.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Ebony Evaughn, your go-to business operations strategist, here to help you scale your business through people and processes. Today, I am tapping into two of the new but lesser known features inside of Notion that can really make your databases a lot more powerful, and that is by leveraging the subtasks and dependency features. Now, the best way for me to explain how you can actually leverage these is to show you in Notion. So let's go ahead and hop right in Notion. I need a database to use, and I don't want to build one from scratch, so I'm just going to duplicate my existing master task list that I have in Notion already. And then what I want to do is go in here, and I'm going to show you subtasks first, and then I'll show you how to use dependencies. So you may be wondering, like, Ebony, what is the difference between subtasks and dependencies anyways? And basically they're kind of the same thing. The only difference is dependencies are kind of like subtasks with blockers or with conditions, right? So if you're just trying to keep track of all the little things that you need to get done for your main task or subtask, you will likely just use a subtask list. But let's say that the subtasks that you have are dependent on other tasks being completed first. In that case, you want to use dependencies, because the dependency will let you know if one subtask is blocking another subtask in order for it to be completed. But I know that may sound a little bit confusing, but let's go ahead and I will show you exactly how you can use subtasks and the difference between the two. All right, so we are now inside of my master task list database, and I already have a project down here that is for an email cleanup project for a client, but I actually want to create a subtask for this, since it is going to be a project that has multiple phases in order for the project to be complete. So in order to turn on subtasks, what you have to do is go over to your database and go to these three little ellipses here. When you click on this, then you'll see, if you go down, let me move over a little bit. If you go down in the three ellipses, you'll see it says sub items. And so you want to go over where it says off and then hit that to turn on. And so then you can hit turn on sub items, and then it's going to actually update your database. So you'll notice that over here in your database, let's move this like over here somewhere. All right, so you'll notice now in the database next to the task, it has like a little triangle with a drop down, and that is because now you have your main task, and in addition to your main task, you can add sub task or a sub item underneath. And so now I'm just going to go down to my task for my client's email project, and then I'm going to add the different phases that we're actually going to work on for this project. So for example, we have the first phase, which I call phase 0. Don't judge me. Phase 0 is basically our email cleanup scoping call. And this is just where we map out the project. Oh, I didn't even put 0. Come on, 0. So the first thing is to have that scoping call so that we can map out the project, the milestones, the different phases, and just like how the process for the email cleanup that we're going to follow. The next step is going to be phase 1, which is the actual email naming system. So we're going to come up with a new naming process for how we're going to create tags, names for tags, names for email workflows and sequences. And then we're going to go into phase 2, which is going to be the actual email cleanup, where we're going to update the tags, we're going to update the sequence names, and then email phase 2 email clean up tags and workflow. All right, and then phase 3, we are going to actually do the automation. So we're going to clean up the tags and stuff first. Then we're going to set up email automations and optimize the workflows. And then in phase 4, we're going to test and validate, right? All the things that we did. Okay, so these are going to be all of the phases, or all of the subtasks, or all of the steps in this email cleanup project. So now that I have all the subtasks there, all I have to do is I can now go through these one by one, and as they're done, I can actually check them off. And the way my board is set up, it has an automation in here. So if I scroll up, you can see that it has this little lightning bolt icon here, and that is because I have automations. And so with that automation, whenever I mark something as done, it automatically deletes it. So I'm just going to hit Control-Z so that I can undo checking that off as done, so we won't miss a step, right? Okay, but now that I have my phases set up, this is pretty much a subtask under my email cleanup project. So if I hit this toggle triangle here, you can see that this, now you can't see the subtasks that are related to this project. But if I hit the toggle again, now you can see all of the phases listed as subtasks for this actual email cleanup project. Now, that is basically the nuts and bolts of how you can use subtasks. Another reason I love this new feature is because you can have an infinite number of subtasks that you add. So for example, for phase 0, let's say we have our cleanup scoping call, but I want to have subtasks for that. I can actually add that as well. So let's say we have to coordinate a date and time for call. I can add that, and then I actually have to schedule the call, right? So you can have as many subtasks as you want, as far as I know. So I know you could go at least 4 levels deep on this to add subtasks, but I haven't gone beyond that to know if you can or not. But it is my assumption that you can have an infinite number of subtasks and continue to go as deep as you want to or may need to. Now, in addition to this, you also have dependencies. And so using the same email cleanup project, I'm going to show you how you can leverage dependencies. Let's say if one subtask is dependent on the other, right? So let's say we can't actually get into our naming conventions until that email scoping call has happened. In order to use dependencies, the first thing that I need to do is actually just assign some due dates to this. So we're going to have a date range. Our project is going to start, we can say it'll start today, and then we want our project to be finished by July 10th. And then we're just going to go and add in dates for each one of the phases, when we plan to actually deliver those, or when we plan to execute, right? So we're going to have our scoping call on Monday. Once we have that scoping call, then we can start with the naming system and convention. So that's going to take us 2 days. We're going to start it on the 25th. We'll be finished by the 26th. And then once that naming system is done, then we can start working on cleaning up the email list, assigning new tags. So we'll start that on the 26th. And then we will work on that for probably 3 days through Friday. And then once that's done, we can work on setting up the email automations and optimizing those workflows. That's going to take about a week. We're going to start fresh on July 1st, and we'll work on that through Friday. So the 1st through the 5th. Once we get our automations up and running, then we need to do some testing and validations. So we're going to start testing on July 8th, and then we should be finished by July 9th. So now that I have these dates assigned, what I want to do is I'm going to go back over here to these little ellipses. And then when I click on that, you can see that now we're going to go down to where it says dependencies. It is currently off. I'm going to turn this on. And then when I turn this on, there's a couple of different options that you have on here. And depending on your project, you may want to select one option over the other one. So the first option says shift only when dates overlap. And this is what I want to use. But you do have the option to say shift and maintain time between different items. So for example, if your project, if a date changes, you want that date to basically shift the dates for your entire project, and no matter the time between. So let's say if I have my scoping call on Monday and then I'm not starting the naming until Wednesday, if I move my email scoping call to Tuesday, it won't shift the dates because there's no overlap between me having the meeting on the 25th if the next phase doesn't start until the 26th. But for example, the way it is right now, I have this meeting that is scheduled for the 24th, Monday the 24th, and then the email naming system phase is supposed to start on the 25th. If I change the date for the scoping call, it will also change the date for the subsequent phases so that there isn't a overlap in the due date. So if you want that to shift, then you want to make sure you do select shift only when the dates overlap. If you don't want that to be a deciding factor, then you may want to say shift and maintain time between items. If regardless if there's an overlap or not, you want the dates to shift if something changes in one of the earlier phases, if that makes sense. And if you don't want it to shift automatically, then you could just say do not automatically shift. And if you change the date for phase 0, phase 1, then it's not going to change any of the subsequent date. It's automatically highlighted to avoid weekends. So if you don't work on the weekends, you don't want the weekends to be considered, then you want to make sure you toggle this on so that it won't assign a due date on the weekend. And then you can say set your parameter for the date shift. So this is going to be shifting based on the due date. I do have other options where we use like the post date when something actually posts as far as content, but typically you'll use the due date to determine when to shift. And then the only other option that's important here is to turn on dependencies. So I'm going to hit turn on, and then you can notice over here, once that I hit turn on, it adds additional fields down here on the end. Let's see if we can get these to show up. Okay, so you see when I turned on dependency, it adds these two fields for blocked by and blocking. And basically, if you want to look at this in the table view, then you can look and see, okay, what's blocking us from getting to the next phase, or what is this phase being blocked by? It will show up here. But the easiest way to actually look at dependencies and to use this is to look at it through the timeline view. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to switch the view for this, and we're going to switch from table view to timeline. And then it will probably make more sense visually because you're looking at the actual timeline view. All right, so you can see here, this is my email cleanup project. You can see each one of the phases in the project. And in order to set dependencies so that you know that one task is dependent on the other one, in timeline view, it is very simple. All you have to do is kind of hover over the first dependency or the first task that needs to be done. And then you see when you highlight it has this little arrow. So you want to just click and then take that arrow down to the next task that is dependent on that task being done. And then you want to do the same thing for each one of your tasks. So I'm just going to, where's my arrow? Just take the arrow, drag it to the task that is dependent on that task. And then you can see that it automatically creates an arrow and shows which task is depending on what, right? So now that I have this done, let me show the due date on here, and then we can look at how this works as far as if the dates change. So as of right now, for phase 0, we have to have our scoping call first so that we can kind of map out the project and the naming system and all of that. So let's say that we're unable to meet on Monday and we have to push our scoping call back till, let's say, Wednesday. When I change the due date for this to the 26th, you can see that it also changes the due date for all of the other dependencies based on this date change for the email scoping call. So how phase 1 originally started on the 26th, now it has shifted to the 27th, and then so on for each one of the following phases. So that is pretty much how dependencies work. And if you have something where one thing is dependent on the next, then this is going to be a very helpful tool for you to use. So there you have it. That is a quick and simple tutorial on how you can leverage Notion subtasks and dependencies to boost your productivity and make sure you are staying on track and on task when it comes to managing your own workflows and processes or client projects. If you want access to more Notion tips and tricks, make sure you check out my Notion playlist. It'll be linked in the description below. And if you want to give Notion a try for yourself to boost your business's productivity, have a virtual command center where you can track every aspect of your business all in one place, then make sure you check out my Notion templates below. I have a business dashboard that kind of serves as a virtual command center. I have an email planner that can help you with your email marketing goals and initiatives. I also have a optimization challenge. So regardless of your business needs, I probably have a Notion template for you. All right. Thanks so much for stopping by my internet home. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe and turn on those notifications so you'll be the first one to get notified anytime I upload another video just like this. All right. Bye, y'all.